Welcome back to Movies TV Man. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Welcome to Friday's edition of the DCU Daily, the Man of Steel trilogy we deserved. We keep on getting done dirty. Richard Donner was fired by the Salkinds. Donner and Mankiewicz, his writer, the guy who wrote Superman 78, they had a cool plan for 4 to 5 Superman movies. We'll never see that plan because of dumb people. And we never needed a DCEU. We don't need a DCU, a DC universe. We need great DC movies. That's all we need. But WB wanted a Batman and Superman movie because Man of Steel didn't make $1 billion. Oh, boo-hoo, you made just shy of 700 million. A great start. The point is that Man of Steel was going to be a trilogy which was going to be continued to be penned by David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan and directed by Zack Snyder. It's not an accident that one of Zack's best movies is Man of Steel and 300, because on those movies there's people behind the scenes stopping him from going too far. And he's focusing on what he does best, directing, projecting that visual storytelling that he does so well. And he does do that so well, like it or not. It's when you give Zack Snyder too much rope. It's when you allow him total control where things go a little bit awry. As much as I love BVS, he was in total control of that movie. And there lies the problem, why it was so, divisive. Because I love that film. I won't be without that film. But that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But there was a plan for a Man of Steel trilogy. But Mick, Man of Steel was also divisive. Half the fandom didn't like it. Do you know that hardcore Star Wars fans hated the prequels? You know that, right? That Tolkien fans hated the Hobbit trilogy. But those trilogies weren't abandoned. They were still made. Some people were delighted by them and some people hated them. You don't abandon a plan because some people don't like something. That's what art, that's what making something is all about. Some people will like it, some people won't. Unfortunately today, we've gone to the industry side of art and entertainment, where if everybody doesn't like something, then it gets abandoned. Because everybody loved the MCU, that worked. So WB wanted the same thing. But it's very rare to get a perfect storm where more people love something than hate something. It very rarely happens. But you don't abandon your plan. Doing a Man of Steel trilogy penned by Goyer and Nolan, the guys who brought you the Dark Knight trilogy, was an excellent idea, and we'll never see or never know what that could have been. There was never any need for a DCEU. The DCEU was an idea from the studio who wanted to make MCU money. Batman vs Superman was a reactive decision because Man of Steel didn't make $1 billion. But what we should have actually had was a Man of Steel trilogy. That's what we were going to have, and we'll never see the likes of that again. And as I say, we keep on getting done dirty. Superman and DC fans keep on getting done dirty. Smallville fans were done dirty when Alfred Gough and Miles Miller, the creators, showrunners of Smallville, were driven off the show, running the show and executive producing the show by the CW. There was even legal action that Gough and Miller won way after the show ended. We never got to see their ending, their Smallville. That was abandoned. The peak of Smallville was the first 3 seasons when Gough and Miller were hands-on and writing a multitude of episodes. We lost out when they were driven off that show. We lost out when Donner was fired after Superman 78. We lost out when Goyer and Nolan's vision was abandoned. Very interesting that Goyer got the blame for Man of Steel not making $1 billion for the hate the killing of Zod got was on. Snyder got the kind of blame from the public, but ultimately it was Goya's vision that was abandoned. The guy who penned the screenplays for Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, one of the most popular, most successful comic book movies ever made. And they didn't trust him to continue with a Man of Steel trilogy because they were chasing that MCU green, that MCU money. That's the moment the DCEU died, the moment they binned the vision, the Man of Steel trilogy vision of Goya and Nolan. Goya and Nolan penning a Man of Steel movie and Snyder directing it was the perfect storm. It was bold, it was ballsy, it was contemporary. I've said this so many times. It doesn't have to be ultra popular. You have an idea. You want to mold some clay. You want to tell a trilogy story. Let your storytellers, your artists, do that. But we're not in that type of industry anymore. Every day I go on Twitter and there's a new reboot or prequel of, an intellectual property being announced. And I just put a laughing emoji. What else can I do? I am lost for words, everyone. I am lost for words. The creative garbage dump we are in scripted entertainment today, whether it's television, whether it's streaming, or whether it's movies, it's all a garbage dump. They want to reboot Little House on the Prairie, Netflix do. We all know where we're going to go with that. You can never do a better job of adapting those books than Michael Landon did himself. Landon not only starred, but he directed most of the episodes. And he was in charge. He was the EP of that show. The man was a working artistic dynamo, an amazing man, a very religious guy. I'm not religious personally, but I respect him for his beliefs. He was an amazing guy. He really was. But we're in a garbage dump right now. And the ousting of Goya and Nolan's vision of a Man of Steel trilogy shows you how bankrupt these studios are. That's where the problem lies. Batman vs Superman, as divisive as it was, made nearly $900 million. Wonder Woman, as we've spoken before, $800 million. There was a solid profitability, but WB couldn't handle some people not liking what was being done. Some people not liking what Snyder was doing. But ultimately, with Man of Steel, or a Man of Steel trilogy, it wasn't Zack Snyder who was actually in charge. It was David Goyer and Christopher Nolan, the geniuses behind the Dark Knight trilogy. Snyder was directing their story, and they were giving him carte blanche to do. So basically, it was perfect because he would do the visual story and they would do the written story. Perfect storm. A Man of Steel, as I say, is a beautiful, ballsy, modern, contemporary movie. And we could have got the continuation of that instead of a DC extended universe. And this, my friends, is where it all went wrong. The lack of faith in creatives to let them continue. It's all, as I say, New Line Cinema could have abandoned The Hobbit after the first Hobbit movie, and originally it wasn't even going to be a trilogy. Of course, this is Hollywood, so they have to milk the cow, right? But because I've never read a Tolkien book and I'm not a diehard, I enjoyed the Hobbit trilogy. Of course, the Hobbit trilogy isn't as good as the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy, but this is a problem with prequels. A conversation for another time. They're greenlighting so many prequels. Prequels don't work. House of Dragons isn't as good as Game of Thrones because nobody cares about how it happened. We know what happened with the Targaryens. We don't really need to see it. Now, if you did it before we saw Game of Thrones, I would have been up for that. I like House of Dragons. It's got the same production values of Game of Thrones, but it's never going to capture the imagination that Game of Thrones did. I've said that on many occasions as well. But we are in a garbage dump. We could have had a Man of Steel trilogy, and that could have been that. That could have been the end. Then somebody else could have come in and did something else. some other original take, but originality and new Hollywood and not comfortable bedfellows today. And they find themselves on the verge of bankruptcy because of their poor decision making. Instead of trying to copy the MCU, instead of greedily being obsessed with trying to make the money the MCU were making, you just do. WB were always about, giving visionary directors and storytellers the keys and allowing them to do what they want. But they were trying to follow the Disney formula. Pepsi can't make Pepsi Cola taste like Coca-Cola. How many times have I said that? DC can't be Marvel. So now what have they done, right? They've brought in a former Marvel writer-director to try and give them the Marvel formula. They have no plans of doing a Superman trilogy. James Gunn has no plans of making a Superman trilogy. They're using Superman's good name to launch a DC universe, a franchise like the MCU. And Gunn can deny that the DCU is going to be like the MCU, but that's exactly what they want. This is what Zaslav wants, because it's about making money. The more they chase the green, the more they won't make the green. That's the funniest thing. Someone said on X Twitter the other day, they've been chasing the Marvel formula, but they still haven't succeeded in making Marvel money. And I know Marvel is in a lot of trouble with the MCU as well right now. I get that, but there was a time when they were making a lot of money. But I think the MCU is the thing that really broke cinema, variety in cinema, varied film in cinema. Everyone was chasing the money and not the art. All of a sudden, everyone went insane. Instead of Hollywood being a place of art, an art form, it became a money chaser. And the more you just focus on the money and not the creativity, it's the creativity, it's making a great movie that makes you the money, not copying what somebody else does. But this is a symptom of a Hollywood disease that's gone on for many, many decades. When the first Terminator came out, all of a sudden you had, like strong geezers who looked like Arnie holding guns, killing people. After Rambo, there were similar movies to Rambo. After Alien, there were similar movies to Alien. They always copy. They try and jump on bandwagons. It never, ever works out for them. After Highlander, they tried to do similar films to Highlander. It's a Hollywood disease. It truly is. And I think this is why Hollywood has to end. The people who run Hollywood, the whole thing has to close down. It will close down. It will go bankrupt. And you need new people to rebuild scripted entertainment, to put the art, the storytelling, and the character development first. Because if you do that, you'll make money. It's what they did with 24, it made money. It's what they did with Smallville, it made money. It's what they did with Lost and Alias, it made money. Prison Break, same with films, The Lord of the Rings, it was so good. It was done by people who cared about those books. It made money because people liked it. You can't chase other people's formula. If your aesthetics are to make something good, you will make money. Man of Steel nearly made 700 million. I think the other two movies would have made similar amount of money, maybe slightly more. I don't think they would have made less, right? There was an interest there. Batman Begins barely made 400 million, but they carried on. Obviously, Batman Begins was a really low budget movie as well. And that's one of the reasons it got the Dark Knight sequel as well. But ultimately, that's what they should have done. Once you start on a road, you can't abandon that road. Of course, Man of Steel was divisive, and that wouldn't have helped the other two movies. But the decisions they made with the DCEU didn't help the situation either. Man of Steel is a really good film, and they should have told that trilogy, just like they continued the prequels, even though hardcore Star Wars fans despised The Phantom Menace, and why hardcore Tolkien fans hated the first Hobbit. I loved The Hobbit, by the way. I thought it was a very, very charming tale, a very charming film, and I'm really glad we got another two movies. But DC fans keep on losing out, and losing out big, and it simply isn't fair.